Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now if you're interested in watching wrecked cars be rebuilt, you're in the right place. Like this car right here, it's a 2015 Mark 7 VW Golf. I bought this from Copart, it's a salvage auction, and as you can see, it's definitely seen better days. Now my plan with this channel is to give a complete guide from where I source the cars, how much I pay, how much each part cost, how to repair the car, and eventually what the car's worth at the end of it. So when I put the winning bid in for this Golf, I became extremely nervous. This is the first time I'm going to have to repair a car completely on my own. But I'm going to show you everything is bolt on, bolt off, and if I can do it, I'm sure you can too. Now one of the biggest worries when buying a car sight unseen is how is it mechanically. So let's try and start this car and see if there's any problems. Now from the sounds of things, the engine sounds perfect. Let's take a look under the hood. Now my biggest worry with this car was, with the wing being hit so hard, how's the flitch underneath? But as you can see, it's completely straight. So I'm happy. The car runs, it sounds fine. But that takes us on to the first problem. The car is absolutely filthy. Now to give some context, this car's come all the way from Scotland. In Scotland it's been snowing a lot recently and it's been stored there for about 3 months, so that would explain why it's so dirty. And if you take a look inside, we literally have mould growing on the interior. What you can't see here is the smell. It smells horrible. Because I'm going to be working inside and out of this car, I don't want to be getting ill. So before we get started on repairing the damage, let's give this car a quick clean.
All Sound Production.
Cleaning this car took me overall around 2 hours, about an hour on the interior and an hour on the exterior, but I think you'll agree those seats look brand new, so I'm very pleased with that. And there you have it, the car's looking amazing and it smells even better. But we're losing daylight today, so join me tomorrow when we start digging into that damage. And just like that, it's the very next day here. Let's not waste any more time because it's absolutely freezing. Let's get started. The first issue I'm having is the car does not drive. When you put it into first gear, it does nothing. The car doesn't move, it doesn't try to move, which leads me to believe the drive shaft snapped. So let's get this car jacked up and have a look. Remember here, safety comes first, so make sure you always have at least one axle stand under the car. We've got that smashed wheel off, we get a much better view of what's going on. The drive shaft is snapped from the inner boot, which would explain why the car doesn't drive at all. That wishbone is completely bent. It looks like the track control arm's also bent. Overall, not too bad at all. I have bought a complete suspension leg just in case, but let's get this suspension leg apart. So the first thing here to take off is the brake caliper. It's held in by 2 bolts, top and bottom. Once they're undone, I press the piston back with a screwdriver so that when it comes to putting the caliper back on, it's nice and easy. Next is the drive shaft bolt. I'm using a breaker bar here as they can be quite tight, and there's a screwdriver in the brake disc to stop the brake disc rotating. Undoing the wishbone bolt here, there's actually 2 bolts, one at the front and one at the back, so I'm just undoing the front one here. It's quite tight, I had to use a spanner, I couldn't get a ratchet in there. Now the nuts on the track rod end can be quite tight, and I believe they have a nylon thread which stops them rotating, so I'm applying a bit of heat here and that will melt the nylon thread and make it a lot easier to undo. Nice and easy, a Torx bit in the bottom and a spanner to undo, so you're doing anti-clockwise with the spanner and clockwise with the Torx bit, and out she comes. Same again with the drop link bolt, a little bit of heat and undoes with a spanner. Now we're almost there with getting the suspension completely out. You can see the drive shaft is out of the hub, the drop link is disconnected, and the wishbone is disconnected from where it bolts to the subframe. On top of that, we've got the track control arm undone, and there should be just 3 bolts on top of the suspension to get this completely out. Like I said earlier, I bought a complete suspension leg from a breaker's yard. This has come off an identical car, and as you can see, side by side. This is what the wishbone's supposed to look like, and that's what mine look like. So a big difference. You can see the old one's completely bent. The new suspension leg was complete, like I said, but I didn't need the brake caliper and the brake pads, so I'm getting them removed. coming very close to getting this suspension completely apart. You can see here on the inner drive shaft there's just 6 bolts holding the drive shaft to the gearbox, and I have already slackened the track rod, so that just needs to be removed. And just like that, the complete suspension is removed. Now we just need to do all that, but in reverse. For now, I'm just using the spare wheel, and that's just so I can get to the tyre shop and buy a steel wheel to replace the old one. And now we have the suspension all complete. That was my first time doing a complete suspension leg by myself. It wasn't too hard. As you saw, a couple of the bolts were quite tough. I just had to apply some heat to them and they got released. But the biggest test now is, does the car drive? If you remember back to the start of the video, I said the car wasn't driving, and that was because the drive shaft was snapped. But let's have a look now. That seems pretty good to me. And there you have it, suspension leg complete. The car drives perfect on our short little test drive. But thank you very much for watching. Join us next week when we get the door and the wing replaced and hopefully go on that first test drive.